r/AskReddit. Urban explorers of Reddit. What's the scariest thing that's happened to you while in an abandoned place? There are a few abandoned asylums in Maryland which were abandoned quite quickly after they were ruled unlawful and shut down, or something like that. One of them is right near an NSA building. Of course you're not allowed to be on the property, as it's really not safe. About a third of the buildings are literally actively falling apart. Getting onto the property involves hiking through the woods and dodging the cars they send out to patrol the perimeter every once in a while. The place is creepy as all hell. I've been to plenty of abandoned houses and warehouses and other buildings in my time, but nothing is as unsettling as an asylum. My friends and I snuck in there a few times when we were all about 19-20. Normally, we would go during the day, hike in, and just walk around, spray paint some stuff, break some stuff, look through papers to learn more about the place, etc. The creepiest area was the church. Now, the chapel itself wasn't so weird. Broken stained glass windows, papers strewn everywhere throughout the pews, and a few missing doors. The creepy part is the fact that the church has 3 floors. The chapel floor looks totally normal other than being dilapidated and destroyed. If you try to walk up the stairs, the top of the stairs open up to a 3-story drop out the back of the building and down to a grassy hill and some forest. A bit unsettling but pretty cool. That spiral stone staircase also leads down to a basement. A dark basement. There's a door missing from its hinges and a single window, but they don't completely illuminate the basement, which is just flat, misty concrete. But there's another room down there. We didn't dare to venture too far into the dark basement the first few times we went, but eventually we got up the courage to check it out. Flashlights on, we marched into the big concrete room and walked to the door in the dark corner. We opened it up to reveal a small room, about 8 feet by 10 feet, with nothing in it but a big, flat steel table at waist height about 7 feet by 4 feet and a bunch of huge metal hooks bolted into the ceiling. I'm sure I speak for everyone involved when I say that the hairs on my neck and arms had never before been so erect. After the initial shock wore off, we looked around the room a bit more, just trying to imagine what had gone on in this little room. Then a clattering sound, metal on concrete, came from behind the door on the far side of the room. We bolted out of there as fast as we could, running away from the chapel until we could see the whole thing. 2 guys are fidgeting with some pipe outside the building next door. One of them sees us and calls out, and 2 of our friends bolt. Turns out they were as surprised as we were to see someone else there. They were stealing metal to sell to a scrapyard. Made me feel a lot better, until we returned later that night. Climbed up on the roof of one of the buildings to smoke, just hanging out and chatting until a break in the conversation leaves it quiet enough for us to hear voices. We fall silent. Every few minutes, we hear what sounds like a party, just on the edge of the silence. Didn't want to meet the kind of people who party in an abandoned insane asylum at night. Noped out quick, sprinted back to our cars through the pitch black woods, and haven't been back since. I was in the basement of an abandoned factory once with a friend and it was pitch black of course and all we had were tiny flashlights and it's scary enough, but then we heard clicking sounds and my friend's flashlight hit something moving and then greenish glowing eyes, then more eyes and then they all started coming towards us fast and a mother dog and probably 3 or 4 puppies ran past us into the darkness. For a second there it was the most scared I ever had been. 2 friends and I were exploring an old Victorian house in an area that was morphing into a warehouse district. Most of the houses had been torn down to make way for new warehouses, but this house and one other were sort of awkwardly sited, so a new road extension would have to be added for truck access. It was boarded up, but we thought that we could make some cool videos of us exploring it as we could see through one broken window that there was still furniture inside. We finished breaking the broken window so we could shimmy in. It was pretty dark inside but we had lights on our cameras and some of the boards on the windows didn't cover the top couple of inches. The place was amazing. At some point in the recent past someone had boxed up plenty of stuff but each room still had most of its furniture. We turned a corner and faced a fancy carved set of stairs which led to the upstairs but someone had roped it off with old, dingy women's clothing tied end to end. There were a lot of such cloth ropes tied every which way, making it almost impossible to ascend. Only women's clothing. We looked at each other in a puzzled way, and in that moment all three of us distinctly heard the click of a door locking on the second floor. Without a word we turned around and crept back to the window. While the others slipped out the window, I took a quick look around and saw fancy fountain pen on a small table near the window, so I pocketed it and slipped out. I still have that fountain pen and once had it appraised at an antique store for $250 to $275. This applies to multiple places I've explored. Some places don't feel empty. Multiple times I have known I'm alone in a house, but it feels like I'm not. It's hard to describe, but it is terrifying. Sometimes the way a house naturally decays makes me scared. When the ceilings come down and the floor upstairs is now downstairs, it is scary. Houses where the last occupant's belongings are all still there is both fascinating and also spooky. It really makes you feel like you've stepped into a place you shouldn't be in. It's very personal. Urban exploration has been a passion of mine from a really early age. I could write about it for hours probably. I had brought a girl to a ghost town at night. I knew the place quite well, and while she was exploring the basement of the courthouse, I stood outside looking out into the surrounding desert with my headlamp. Suddenly my light caught two bright lights out in the sagebrush about 50 feet away. I pointed my light at them and started making my way forward, trying to figure out what they were. Then the glowing dots blinked and I stopped dead in my tracks. There was definitely something out there watching us. I didn't make a big scene, but I chambered around in my carry pistol and told the girl we should go as casually as I could, and we got out of there post haste. I didn't tell her the full story until it came up in conversation months later. I'm pretty sure we were getting stalked by a mountain lion. Old house that used to belong to my dad's friend. Found a lightly blood-stained mattress that belonged to a drug addict inside. There was a notepad next to it that had creepy crap like "I can't and he hurts me and please stop," but the one that made my heart skip a beat: "Read, don't look up." Edit. A little later we found a lone persimmon tree and I felt like something was watching us from inside the house. And I should clarify that there was dust on the mattress and the notepad, so we knew the occupant was long gone. Otherwise we would have left at the first sign of someone being there, because I have seen Deliverance and this was way out in the middle of nowhere, Texas, right before a bad storm. And this old German woman's decrepit, 100-year-old domicile wasn't exactly weatherproof. Am I late to the party? Apologies if this isn't very well written, but I'm going to recount it as close as I can. I've probably explored 500 plus abandoned places at this point, and 99% of them are exactly what you'd expect. Rundown houses, factories and hospitals, creepy enough to make cool photos but nothing sinister about them. I've been in every stereotypically spooky place: old Victorian asylums, haunted mansions in the middle of nowhere, several morgues and operating theaters, abandoned graveyards, creepy basements and tunnels, the list goes on. This place was different. A bit of background information: we love finding new places and get most of our locations from Google Maps, news articles, land registry etc. So often we don't know what a place will be like before we turn up. Sometimes they are sealed, empty or demolished, and I wish this place had been any of those. This was the last place of the day. It was getting dark and rainy, as it often does in rural Scotland, but we decided to push on and get a few photos before all the light went, and we had a fair drive to get to the hotel, so we couldn't just put it off until tomorrow. At first it didn't even seem abandoned, just a church in the middle of a very well-kept cemetery. My friend assured me that from his research it definitely wasn't in use, and I was pretty keen to get inside because abandoned churches can make beautiful photos, and we were losing light fast, so we had to be quick. The back door was wide open. We went through the kitchen into the main hall, and that was the last time we spoke for the next 2 hours. The atmosphere was thick and we're both lost for words and a bit shocked. Instead of the standard pews and Jesus statues, there were children's toys everywhere. This might not seem that strange, but for the fact that among the 70s and 80s dolls, prams and matchbox cars, there was also a bedroom area, one bed, clearly made up for a child and surrounded by children's books. No adult beds, so I don't think it was a family squatting. I don't want to jump to conclusions, but I don't think anything good was happening here. We left and drove to the hotel pretty much in silence. The atmosphere of the whole day had changed while we both tried to make sense of what we'd just seen. Despite outward appearances, the place was collapsing inside. A huge hole in the floor had formed and amp was setting in, so any evidence of the toys, the bed and the sinister atmosphere may be lost soon. I don't know if anyone else has discovered this place or knows what happened, but it's not somewhere I'll ever return to. I refuse to share the location even with my closest explorer friends. Photo for anyone curious. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel for more edit videos like this. Don't forget to smash that like button and stay crispy, guys.